Guys, here you go. You ready, Cole? Here you go.
This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of The Empty Chair for the addict who did not know recovery was possible. Tonight, I meant to ask you girls if you had anyone to dedicate the show to, and I just never got an answer back because I know I asked you in an email. So tonight's show will be dedicated to, let's pick Phil Leahy. But he is here. Welcome to the show with my co-host Phil Leahy, who is not here in body form, but he is here with me in spirit. And he had a birthday and last week, and he's missed very much. But again, he's always with me. So thank you for tuning in tonight. I always like to thank our sponsors who make this show possible. So Alternative Home Healthcare, Circle of Hope, Discover Methuen, Enterprise Bank, Haven of Hope, Heartfelt Recovery Centers, Inspired Vibes, whose name they are rebranding, and also Team Sharing. And I want to bring up something about Team Sharing. As most of you know, Team Sharing did those beautiful license plates for overdose awareness, and we needed 750 people to pre-buy. Well, those license plates have been made and they're on the road, and if I was a Massachusetts resident, I would definitely be driving around with one. They're absolutely beautiful, and I hope it helps decrease the stigma attached to addiction. And hi, Joel. We already got Joel saying hi. Hello, my friend. Also, I just wanted to bring to note that it was on the news tonight. I had learned about it last week at a conference that the CDC reports a 30% decrease in fatalities in 2023 through 2024, which is great news. However, we've seen an increase in fatalities since January 2025 already this year. And it's due to xylazine being added to the product, which Narcan cannot reverse that overdose. So good and bad. That's why we continue to do these shows. We continue to educate. We continue to make noise because every life is special. And that's why we are here tonight. So May has been mental health awareness. We've been doing shows, TV shows on Methuen TV, which was an amazing show. You can see that on Methuen Community TV as well. And then tonight we're focusing on mental health and the struggles of new mothers that they go through during pregnancy and after. In 2024, the statistics for postpartum depression includes approximately 600,000 of mothers were affected by mental health disorders, including postpartum and depression each year. And nearly 50% of the mothers with postpartum depression are not diagnosed by a health profession, which is a huge conversation I want to have with you girls tonight. But the good news about postpartum is 80% of the women of postpartum depression will achieve a full recovery. So tonight I want to welcome our guests, Ashley and Carin, and it's Carin with a C, not a K, because she would not want it with a K. And welcome for coming to the show. Ashley, Danny says hello. He sends his love to you. I go, she won't remember you. He goes, she better. But he knew you would. Yes. So welcome to the show. I want to hear a little bit about why you ladies went into this area and first how you got started. So if you want to just talk about a little bit your education and then what made you go this route in regards to working with moms, and then about your agency. So who would like to go first?
Sure. So I went to school to be a mental health counselor.
Yep.
And right away, I started working in emergency rooms, loved crisis work. And that's how I met Carin.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I was like, my soul identifies with her soul. So we just stuck together.
Awesome.
So through crisis work, we see everything.
Yeah.
We see psychosis. We see all ages. We see children. And something that I don't remember really being taught in school was about postpartum and new moms, what they go through. and how important that is.
Yeah.
And then I had my first baby, and even being a licensed mental health clinician, I wasn't prepared. And I don't think the doctors really prepared me either. I went in thinking it's going to be like a Pampers commercial and everything's going to be great. And then it wasn't. And that was scary. I remember my mom coming in saying, "Isn't it a love like no other?" And internally I was like, oh my God, something's wrong.
Right.
Because I didn't have that connection
I
right
hate
away.
this. What did I do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, what's going on? Why am I not connecting with him? So right away it was guilt, shame, fear. So shoved it down. Like, can't talk about it. They'll think I'm a bad mom.
And how was this instantly after he came out of the womb?
It was it was the first day my parents came to visit in the hospital.
Wow.
And it was a traumatic birth, which again was something no one prepared me for.
Yep.
Thought it was going to be like what they show in commercials, and it wasn't. And it was scary. So I think I was just really recovering, like, oh my God, I made it through that. And then it was like, there's this little stranger in my room, and why am I not feeling what I'm supposed to feel? So it was eye-opening. And I didn't have my mom tribe at the time. I was the first of my friends to have a baby. So I didn't really understand what was going on. And even being in mental health, and I've had anxiety before, I had awareness of it, and this is a different beast. There's such minimal insight and awareness when you're in it, because you're surviving and you're keeping this little human alive. And it's kind of scary looking back, like realizing, oh my gosh, I was not good, and I didn't realize.
And that's how babies lose their lives, as moms have these delusions of whatever, and they end the life of the baby. So were you able to share it with your husband, like, something's not right with me or anything? Like, what did it finally take for you to say, I'm not right and something's going on? Did family notice it?
My husband noticed. I remember him asking the lactation consultant, like, she's sad a lot, she's crying a lot. And the response was just, that's normal. That's normal. Everything's fine. This is typical. Right. So and then anytime I had interacted with a provider, it was really dismissed. And I had a moment where I'm like, I'm going to reach out for help because I'm not well. And I went to a therapist, and it was my first appointment ever. And I had to bring my baby because, he goes where I go. And I said, I had this traumatic birth. I'm having these flashbacks. I don't feel well. And she looked at him and then looked at me and said, but look at him. He's fine. Everything's fine. So what's the problem? Wow. And I left and never came back.
Wow.
And that was when I stopped. And with my second baby, I had my friends and learned a lot more, and it was a dramatically different experience. But now as a mental health provider, being like, oh my God, like going through school, being a licensed counselor, and being that not ready and unaware, I can only imagine what other mothers who don't have a mental health background are going through.
Right.
And we started seeing
so
that.
I guess they just focus on the nurses and the doctors for that piece, instead of putting that mental health, that part into the mental health counseling piece. Because you're right, that's a big key. Because not only do you have the pregnant, you have the hormones that are all over the place from the time you get pregnant to the time the baby's out and after. So I wonder why that's not like a part that. And did either one of you? So you didn't pick this in school to say, "Hey, I'm going to focus on this." This actually happened to you and scared you so much, and you finally said, "Let's make some noise about this."
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also had a very traumatic birth. My daughter was 8 weeks early and was an emergency C-section. My water broke in the middle of the night. It was like panic. Was rushed in for emergency surgery, came out, and she was like this 4-pound little tiny human, and I had no idea what was going on. And so I basically lived in the NICU for a month or so, minimal sleep, living in that hospital environment. And I just remember being terrified and feeling a lot of shame and guilt that, like, I was the reason that she was so early. And there was just a lot of psychoeducation that happened around that. But I remember going through like the postpartum appointments with the doctors and they just ask like the really basic questions. And then
What are the basic questions?
like they use the PHQ-9, which is like a depression scale, and the GAD-7, and which the anxiety scales. They ask you about, like, are you having thoughts about wanting to hurt yourself, or do you feel safe in your home? But then that was really it. And I remember not being honest.
Mhm.
Out of fear.
Out of fear.
Of what would happen.
Right. And so for a really long time, I like didn't want to have another baby. My husband, who was wonderful, was like, okay, well, we'll deal with that.
Right.
That's fine. And then ended up having a second one, but feeling a little bit more prepared the second time, because I didn't anticipate being so high risk the first time around. And so I like actively sought out through Ashley, like perinatal mental health services that specifically like carried me through that second pregnancy and then postpartum, and helped me with, the postpartum anxiety and depression and things like that. So I think a lot of for us comes from that lived experience.
Right. Are there any kind of, because you both said you had traumatic pregnancies, do you find the women that you work with that it's mostly traumatic, or is it there's no ratio whatsoever? It's just the fact that you two are soul sisters and you both had traumatic first births.
I think it can happen to anybody.
Okay, so you don't find that was a cause with the women that you're meeting saying, "Oh, I came in and this was a traumatic experience for me," versus just a woman like, "I had a baby and it went well."
It definitely can be a risk factor. It definitely can be a contributing factor, just like, people who have, experience loss with miscarriages and things like that can also experience perinatal mental health issues. And so I think it's a contributing factor, but somebody can have a wonderful pregnancy and a birth that they planned, it follows their birth plan, and then still your body does so many different things during pregnancy and after pregnancy that it impacts you so significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of six, and my oldest sister, when she got pregnant, I saw what her body did, and I never had a kid because of it. I was like, I'm all set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just didn't want that to expand.
Yeah.
And then I witnessed I delivered my godson, and I was like, I'm all set. Yep. I saw what the woman can do. So my hat's off to anyone that chose to become a mom, because that's very courageous in my mind, because you pushed out a watermelon, and God bless you. But this is seriously a subject that I hope we have a lot of moms listening to. And if not, like, we'll post this out there, because I have a individual that I see bi-weekly, and she has some concerns in regards to her daughter-in-law, and the individual is extremely intelligent. She's this, she's that, and like the type 1A personality. And I'm like, those are the things we have to be cautious with, because again, you two didn't want to say anything, right? People do not want to say anything. But again, did anyone in your family notice that any of your depressions, you're in NIC unit, did any of the nurses like say anything to you?
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
It wasn't about me at that point. It was about the baby, which,
right,
of course,
yeah. But without mom and the oxygen mask,
right.
You're worth nothing to this child.
Yeah, that was what bothered me the most. My son was also in the NICU, and it's just the heaviest, like, darkest, saddest place I've ever been.
Yeah.
And if a social worker or someone like us came up to check in, that would have made a huge difference. And no one did.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's how many years ago? How old's your oldest child?
10.
10.
Wow, she's 10 now?
I know.
So do you know now if these are in place at hospitals? Do we know if they're social work, or do we just have amazing organizations like yourselves that are focusing on this because of the dangers of it?
I think there's movement. I think I'd like to hope there's movement. We're part of a perinatal coalition.
Awesome.
For Portsmouth and New Hampshire, that's working with the hospitals and other local organizations that focus on pregnant people. So I think there's a lot of movement in the right direction.
Mhm.
And you girls are part of it, so hats
Yeah.
off to you. That's awesome, because definitely. And when I go to work tomorrow, I'm going to find out about like if our hospitals have anything like that they do offer, because of the we're all still traumatized from the woman that's in Tewksbury jail right now, prison, who took her children's lives, and people are thinking that's not real. And you honestly think like a mom could do that to her kids? And so that's the crazy part about it, is people believing it's not real.
Yeah.
And then I don't think you girls were born. It was a long time ago. A woman was on 495 and took her sister's children and walked out on the 495 with them.
Goodness.
Yeah. And like that traumatized me. And never mind the people that hit them,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
stuff. So this is tough stuff, but it's important to talk about. So I appreciate you girls having it. Can you explain a little difference between baby blues and postpartum depression or anxiety? Like, oh, you just got the baby blues. Like, is there really a baby blues and really a depression? Can you separate the difference?
Yeah, they're definitely different, and I think that's part of the problem and like the drive for the education and around perinatal mental health is that people just typically, like, what happened to you essentially, it's just brushed off as baby blues. It's a normal part of being, postpartum, is your hormones are all shifting out of control and going back to, it takes 2 years postpartum for your hormones to go back to normal. So
2 years.
2 years. Yep.
And then you know what happens? Most people have another baby.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is just a continuum of your hormones going for a joyride. Holy smokes.
And you're back in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, baby blues is actually it's 2 weeks. So if this persists beyond 2 weeks, it is not baby blues.
Okay.
No one taught me that. Again, it was just, oh, this is normal. And then we went through training through Postpartum Support International, and we were taught all of this.
Right.
And it was eye-opening.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you were going through that training, how old were your children at that time?
Oh, this was like last year.
Yeah. So about a year ago.
So like eye-opening as to, oh my gosh, you could check off the boxes. That happened to me. That happened to me. That happened to me.
Yeah, we were
like
sitting
crying, like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this was real.
We were sitting at the table, and like we had another friend and coworker that was with us, and we were all just sort of like looking at each other being like, that's me.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's what I experienced, like postpartum PTSD and like postpartum OCD. Like, people just think that it's postpartum depression and that's it, but postpartum anxiety is equally as impactful, and postpartum OCD. And
Right. What signs should a family member look for if they suspect that someone is struggling emotionally during their pregnancy? During your pregnancy, don't you cry a lot anyways?
you can, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
It's when the symptoms start significantly impacting their ability to do, basic things, like their sleep gets significantly dysregulated.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not eating. That sort of detachment, that prolonged detachment from the child.
Maybe like repeatedly do, like we've had friends and we've known clients that will, every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I have to go in, check the baby's chest, make sure he's breathing. And that just became nonstop.
Yeah.
And there was,
that would be me. That's exactly how it would have been.
Yeah. The intrusive thoughts. And this is, everyone has intrusive thoughts, right?
Yep.
But postpartum intrusive thoughts, oh my God, a different level.
Okay.
And that
It controls you. You don't control it.
yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
it just runs with you. It's a different intense level of anxiety that I don't think people even realize exist. And it stops you from doing things you want to do. Women will stop driving with their baby, or maybe some women stop feeding their baby because the intrusive thoughts, they're like, oh my God, what if I did that? Or what if this happened? And it really impairs functioning and kind of that quality of life.
So where do you come in as an intervention? Like when do you folks get involved with someone who's at that level? Do doctors reach out to you, or do women just Google search and find you folks? Like,
I think that the hope is to, at least for me and for us, is to create a program that can intervene like at the beginning of the pregnancy,
Yep.
and then stay with them throughout.
Yeah.
But really, intervention at any time is what's important.
Right.
So,
Have you contacted all the OBGYNs in the Seacoast area, the Seacoast, and what about the women, the midwives? Do you work with any of them?
We're in the process. Yeah. There's one doula that I know was a mom friend, and we've connected, and so we're trying to. It's mostly through social media too that we're just networking.
Yeah.
And there's a woman that I know that does pediatric OT, and she shares. I got some clients through her, so it's just been word of mouth. But I think the hope is to eventually visit with OB offices and provide that education. And I would love to get into hospitals and meet with women right after birth, because a lot of times what people don't realize is these symptoms hit before birth. They hit in pregnancy.
Absolutely.
And again, they're just they're brushed off like, oh, of course you're nervous, you're pregnant, you're going to have a baby. And that happened to a friend of ours too. She did her anxiety scale and was not well. And the doctor was like, I guess that's not too bad for just having a baby, and then did nothing else.
Wow. And then you have the moms that are going to be nervous about, well, now the doctor wants me to take medicine. I'm breastfeeding. Will it impact the baby? Is that something you come across as well with women who they obviously need something to balance their brain, their chemistry? Is that an issue with giving them medications?
I have a client right now that we're working through that, and it's not an issue. If anything, what we've learned through training is that sometimes the risk is greater not being on the medication for the woman and the baby.
There are safe medications that you can take that somebody can take even while breastfeeding,
like a Lexapro or something like that, but not like a benzo or an opioid or something like that, like the SSRIs.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't recommend that mom goes into, oh, you can't breastfeed, like to make this all worse, right? So she's able to.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And then other important, I talked about the early intervention. When should someone seek help? And like, if it's a family member that's witnessing it and they're like, yeah, my wife's not right, or my girlfriend's not right, my partner's not right, do they call 911? Do they go to the doctors? How would one start to activate the alarm, like something's going on with my wife during her pregnancy?
There's definitely resources through Postpartum Support International or PSI that has like a lot of not only support groups for caregivers, but support groups for, the pregnant person. ERs, you can go to ERs. New Hampshire has a mobile crisis program.
That's
so
awesome.
They can come check in and evaluate the person in their home, or and then Maine and Massachusetts also have some sort of mobile crisis program that operates the same.
That's awesome. And then once a mom starts to feel better, like, does she share her story with people, or do you have a group for like that you bring all your clients together so that they can talk about it? Do you have any kind of open forum, or are these all closed one-on-ones with you girls?
Right now they're one-on-one, but I think the goal is to have a group at some point, because I think there's so much power in connecting with other people going through the same thing.
Right.
It's one thing to hear a provider or therapist, doctor say something, but once you connect with other women that felt it and went through it, it's amazing.
Yeah, even for us on like a personal level, like it was like, oh, you know what I'm talking about. Like, so
just like the 12-step supports for substance abuse, alcoholism. When you're in that circle and people can start identifying, it's like you finally can say, oh my gosh, I can breathe, because I felt that and someone else felt it, and now I know I'm okay. Because I think it's the walking around with the I'm not okay ordeal of, and I can't tell anyone. And then we see people lose their lives. There was just a child found in Manchester yesterday. And is that part of this postpartum? And they're trying to identify a brand new baby, and people need to know that there are amazing people like yourselves that could reach out to it. The hormonal changes. So what does that look like? Can you explain what goes on hormonally with women? Like from the time of pregnancy, you said it was 2 years, but it's like a roller coaster. Is there anything that a doctor could give them for hormone balance, or do you just have to let your body do its natural thing while you're having a baby?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a natural process, but keeping an eye out on what's happening so that other maybe SSRIs or medications can intervene to help. But yeah, there's a great build of hormones. The hormonal drop that happens at birth is the biggest hormonal shift that any human body ever experiences.
Yep.
And then what a lot of women don't know is that when you stop breastfeeding, that's another so let's say you breastfeed for a year or two.
Yeah.
You might go through all of this all over again once you stop because now you're shifting again.
Wow.
So there's a lot of changes. And there's this book called Ordinary Insanity that's amazing. And it talks about all the research about how a woman's brain actually biologically changes during pregnancy and stays that way until after birth. So it physically changes the brain, the hormones, everything in the body. And sometimes women continue to seek help after. Sometimes it really just changes things for a bit, and that's okay. You just seek maintenance,
Did you two love your pregnancies when you were pregnant?
No.
Neither one?
No.
Not number one, number two, nothing?
Neither one.
Really? And why didn't you? What parts?
Oh. Again, I think that this played a huge role in postpartum, my own shame and guilt. But I didn't. There's so much of the self-image aspect of it, like your body changes so significantly. I had a lot of anxiety through both pregnancies just because, going into them, I knew sort of what my risks were. And I didn't really feel heard by my doctors and my OBs during the first one about how high risk I potentially could be, which ended up, being accurate. And so I just didn't love it. Yeah.
So those kids better respect you every day.
They are wonderful.
And how old are they now? You said 10 and?
10 and 3.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a big gap. You already let your body get back to normal. And you did another baby. Good for you. Boys or girls?
Our daughter is 10 and then our son is 3.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you like being pregnant?
Both pregnancies, luckily, it was fine. I didn't have any symptoms. I think it was the anxiety that I carried.
Yeah.
So my first pregnancy, it took longer than I wanted it to get pregnant.
Okay.
So the whole pregnancy, it was got to make it to this week. Am I going to continue this? Am I going to, and then the second pregnancy happened really quickly, which was great. But then it was kind of mentally going in a loop on the trauma from the first birth of is that going to happen again? Are we going to be okay this time?
Yep.
But other than that, physically, it was fine. It was just the fear.
Right. So hats off to you both for having the second one, right? Because the first one didn't scare you enough to say, I'm not doing it. And you did it again. So that's a beautiful thing. And you do have 2, correct?
Yeah.
And what are their ages?
5 and 7.
5 and 7. Boys or girls?
Youngest is a girl, oldest is a boy.
What?
Opposite.
No kidding.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Awesome.
Twin flames.
Some other questions I came up with is early intervention. We started to talk about. So right now, if there was a way for you to get into hospitals, is that what your goal is to get into the pregnancy care and say, how about we host a class, do a lunch and learn for the moms so that they can have it?
Doing that sort of outreach, being available for, referrals and that sort of stuff.
All right.
We are doing a pop-up group at the end of May.
What's that about?
It's a mom self-care group, and it's being held at Adaptive Pediatric Therapy in Stratham. So it's a way just to bring moms together to talk about, in honor of Mother's Day, self-care and just connection.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a flyer or any information so we could spread that out for you and get that on the...
I think
we do
have it.
Yeah. Send me any information, because the more resources that we gather, the more resources available for individuals that struggle from this. Again, the whole thing of the hormones all over the place, the fear, doubts, the insecurities, the immediate C-sections? Were you a natural?
No, both C-sections.
Yeah, because once you do a one,
Yeah.
you're one and done. That's your C-sections forever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then can we talk about what messages do you want every woman to hear who may silently be struggling right now?
Oh my gosh, you are not alone. It is so unfortunately common. And there's so much healing and support that can come from reaching out, and there's no judgment. And I think a lot of women stay silent because there's fear of judgment and there's shame. And I was listening to a podcast on Mom and Mine, and Dr. Kat says stigma and shame, they create silence, and silence is the enemy right now. So reaching out to anyone, even if it's not us or a provider, but a friend, a family member, let someone help you in any way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 1 in 5 pregnant people experience some sort of symptom of perinatal mental health. And that's probably vastly underreported.
Yeah.
So, it could be a lot more than that. I think, 70% of women downplay the symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so
you did, right?
I did.
Yeah, both of you was like,
yeah. Because you're just sort of programmed to think that what you're going through is a normal part of pregnancy.
right.
And that it'll just, work itself out. But it's like any other mental health condition or symptom, you can get specialized treatment for it. And you don't have to deal with it alone.
Okay. And can you speak to women that already start off pregnancy already having a mental illness? Maybe they're bipolar, or do you see that they're getting pregnant has a significant change on them versus someone who comes in without any mental health issues, or is there just no correlation whatsoever?
It's a bit of both. So if there's a pre-existing mental health condition or pre-existing trauma, especially sexual trauma, they are highest risk for having a perinatal mood disorder, and that kind of spiking, because it's just going to activate a lot of things in the body. So it's definitely a higher risk factor.
Okay.
And for some, there might not be any history. It might just show up, which is maybe why they think this is just part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what I'm supposed to be feeling.
And what is a perinatal syndrome?
So right now, so the DSM is not the most updated. So right now they only have postpartum depression as a specifier to major depressive disorder. So there's not even a page in the DSM that talks about all of this, but we call them PMADs, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. And that covers depression, anxiety, postpartum OCD, postpartum psychosis. There is women with, postpartum bipolar changes, kind of all of that under one umbrella, and how it all plays a role, and not just
It's not just
depression.
Postpartum depression.
Yeah.
It's a full spectrum of symptoms.
And do you see that our area, the New England area, has a lot of successful mom hurts baby? Do you see a lot of that? Or do you feel as though there's too many interventions now that we're not seeing as much of it?
I don't know
Are there any statistics out
if
there?
there's
on it?
enough statistics.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we're not following it enough.
Yeah, there's not enough. Truly, I don't think that there's enough awareness or, just studies. And it's a pretty blanket type of statistical.
Okay. And I know this might be an odd question, but do the husbands or boyfriends or partners ever experience shut up?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is going to be stupid, but
It's
I want to
not.
act
No.
it. Like, get
Yeah.
out. So explain that to me.
I think, I don't have the numbers with me, but I think it was 1 in 10
Yeah.
fathers experience some type of like postpartum depression or mood disorder as well.
Yeah. Is it because their life's over?
It's oh my gosh, the change of routine, the lack of sleep is
Lack of
really the killer.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that's huge
Yeah.
for me. I'm a 9-hour sleeper all
Yeah.
my life, so
Yeah.
that's something I couldn't have lived without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in general, like lack of sleep impacts people's mental health
Yep.
significantly without any sort of contributing factors.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
you had a baby who, might be
Colicky.
colicky or, just really fussy or, hates sleep like my second child does. And then so neither one of the parents are sleeping
Yeah.
and the baby's not sleeping and it just, it's
You have an angry house.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You do.
Overstimulation.
Absolutely.
stimulation. Yeah.
Mhm.
So if a male is having this, was it postpartum? Would he have? What would he do? And how would he identify it? And what would he say?
I
Because
mean,
they're the man,
Yeah, it's
so
a lot of men aren't as open or willing to reach out, but I hope that changes.
Yeah.
But we're here to help them too. It's
Yeah,
just all
for sure.
under the same umbrella.
yeah,
There are support groups just for dads
Yeah.
through PSI as well.
really.
Whether it's for dads of moms with postpartum OCD or traumatic births or whatever, but they have resources as well because it is something that we're seeing.
Okay. And the PSI again stands for.
Postpartum Support International. He put it in the
He
chat.
did, because who's better than him?
He's
Thank
on
you.
top of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And let's see, grandparents, obviously, right? If mom is struggling and has to go into a facility to receive some help or anything like that, do you see a lot of the grandparents coming in and taking over the role, or is this something you haven't been exposed to?
I think I don't know specifically, but I think that, more often than not, it's either the other parent or a family member of the person.
And what we're seeing now, moms get 6 weeks off after the baby, and we see that the fathers are taking the following 6 weeks, so that infant has 12 weeks of a parent. I'm dying to see if that changes anything with a child or anything in regards to their mood stabilization of not getting in the car, being dropped off here. Like 12 weeks seems, even though 6 weeks isn't that long,
Right.
it's still time off to nurture and be with your baby, and then add another additional 6 for the father to play that role. I think that's a big step.
That's huge.
Yes.
That's got to help so much, especially the first time around, we just had the 1 week off, meaning my husband, and the whole week we were in the NICU. So by the time we came home from the NICU, he's gone and I'm functioning alone. So the second time around, he took 2 weeks, and I saw a big difference in how I was doing.
Because you're New Hampshire residents and you don't get the mess. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know New Hampshire wasn't doing it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it would make a huge difference having your partner there for the support and validation and help. Oh my gosh, I think it would make a huge difference in rates.
I can only imagine that's something that maybe your group should be advocating for and taking to the state house, like Massachusetts is doing it. Let New Hampshire do it as well.
Yeah, there have been, you've seen the stories like in the news and in, social media about like those big companies that are implementing like really great maternity and paternity programs. And so, I think we could as an entire country follow in that footstep.
Absolutely.
We'd see a significant decline.
It's also a financial stressor to have to put a child into daycare. So now you're even expanding it more. And if you get creative with it, when he's done, I'm going to take 2 weeks vacation. Like you can plan out a whole year of having coverage for a child where you're not having to put out the daycare is ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So were your children in daycare, or were you stay-at-home moms?
Both of mine are in daycare.
They are. And you?
And my mom took care of my kids when I went to work. So
so you're lucky you have
have
that.
Yeah.
People that have families, they're able to, like, one less thing to add for a stressor is money, because it is a lot to put them. When I heard my friends calling places, I was like, how much did they want? And I'm like, that's 2 car payments a week, not even for the month,
It's like you're not already stressed. And then you're giving your sweet little baby to strangers, like hoping for the best.
I know. And then you see all the horrific stories about daycare centers, you know, and that's why I like that they're doing the 12-week, the 6 weeks for mom, 6 weeks for dad. And I like that men are just choosing to take the second week in lieu of the first so that there's more time together.
That's smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know tonight you said you were interviewed by the newspaper or the news.
Yes.
In regards to this is mental health, so we do touch on every subject. So can you share a little bit about what that experience was about?
Yeah, so I am the clinical manager of the mobile crisis team for Seacoast Mental Health Center. We cover the majority of Rockingham County in New Hampshire, and there's been it's been a pretty heavy couple weeks for our community. There's been 4 jumpers off of the Piscataqua and the Sarah Long Bridge combined. 3 of which happened within like 24 hours. And then 1 this past Sunday. And so there's a lot of news coverage and media happening around, you know, the bridges and resources and, you know, what can be done to prevent, you know, people from attempting to jump off of that in the future. So
What type of advice did you give them?
So the more immediate answer is where they should be up tomorrow. Actually, they're putting signage on the bridges that gives people the information for calling 988.
Yep.
Which in New Hampshire that links directly to the New Hampshire Rapid Response Access Point, which is how we get mobile crisis.
Yep.
The long-term goal and the most effective form of prevention is reducing access to the means, and so putting up, you know, nets or any sort of deterrent on the bridges can drastically decrease the amount of people that die by suicide off of bridges. Statistically, in 2024, they put up those nets on the Golden Gate and it dropped by 76%. So that I think is should be the biggest goal.
Yeah, I agree.
But, you know, it covers 2 states. So I'm
That's
sure
true.
there's a lot of red tape.
I know.
Yeah.
Now that you said it, it's New Hampshire going into Maine. Welcome to Maine. Yeah. Are individuals bringing their cars or are they walking?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because the first thing, if I saw someone walking, I would, because you have to see them from the highway side. We don't see them from the other, correct?
Yeah. So and they do have cameras on the bridge that monitor like the actual bridge itself.
Right.
I don't know. I used to drive that bridge every day to get to work when I lived in Maine, and now I don't live in Maine anymore. And so it used to be like my biggest fear would be like crossing that bridge and having like I would have to stop.
I think it all the time. Am I going to see someone getting ready to jump?
Yeah.
And am I ready to start having conversations and talking with them?
Yeah.
All the time, because I go into Maine or whatever. And it's crazy. But what was, you said 3 within 24 hours?
About, yeah.
So did they all know each other, or is this just a free? Do you notice that it's happening during the full moons?
I don't know I think it's just,
the full moon was the other day.
Was it really?
Yes. And this is something where I worked in a psychiatric facility for 14 years.
Yeah, the full moon does impact people's
mental
health.
Because
100%.
we would have to double staff.
In crisis, we
see
Absolutely.
it
all the time.
Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah. We don't always know who they are. Sometimes we get information about the people that have died.
Right.
And then sometimes we don't. So to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that any of them knew each other.
Okay.
But
I didn't know if it was like a family that just all of a sudden started to.
Not to my understanding, I don't think it was.
Wow. That's awful.
I don't think there was any.
We went through a pattern last year or the year before with younger kids. And I think when I was speaking to you before we went live, you were saying how old are the kids that are committing suicide right now?
We're evaluating 10 to 12 right now.
Which blows my mind, because why would they even know what the word suicide means? Mm-hmm. So when you see a 10 to 12-year-old, what are they coming in with? Is this a victim of total trauma? is this bullying from school? Like, can you talk a little bit about that age group and why they are walking in and saying they are suicidal?
Well, I think it's both of those things.
I
A
think
lot of
it's-
trauma,
yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of bullying.
Yep.
And the problem now is that bullying follows you home.
Mhm.
It's social media, and
Okay.
bullying continues 24/7 on that. And other things, like a lot of cases we see, it's TikTok, and they're being taught what to do and how to do it, or being part of some type of group in a game that talks about it. So I think that is the biggest factor, I think, in my opinion.
So I'm so anti TikTok. I do not subscribe. Friends will send me something and I can't see it because I'll have to create an account. But I thought somewhere that TikTok was monitoring things so that this couldn't happen anymore, because we had a lot of kids a few years back that were all dying from that stupid Dorito, that hot chip with that
Oh yeah.
like that TikTok, and then there was
Yeah.
another one that was killing them. So I thought they monitored these things.
Not good enough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that kids are getting access to, whether it's through TikTok or YouTube, that it's disturbing to hear about.
Right.
I don't remember between 10 to 12 to ever being aware of any of these types of things.
Wouldn't even know what the word is. I think
Right.
I was pedaling my bike up and down the street and like come home when the lights go out. And then when you say something like that, like that's horrific,
Mhm.
you know, and I really wonder what those numbers look like of individuals that succeeded. Again, our group was like juniors and seniors in high school, and it was one every week.
Mhm.
And we were like, what the hell's going on here? And what we're finding out for other people, oh, Gina said COVID did a lot of damage to our youth as well. So much depression and anxiety in the kiddos.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so working in the field after COVID-19, what
Oh
did
my
you girls experience?
we worked in the field during COVID-19.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
Oh my gosh. It has changed permanently.
Horrendous. Yeah.
It is not the same as it was before COVID.
No. We'll always see lasting effects of COVID. on
What
people's
would
mental
some of
health.
the effects that that you see that or will continue to see? What
Well-
were some of the big changes that happened because of COVID?
The isolation
Okay.
really impacted people's mental health. That for a lot of kids, school is an escape from potentially traumatic home life,
Yep.
or a trying home life. And so then, for months they were sort of in isolation and quarantined with people that they probably didn't want to be with. And so, that's going to have lasting impacts on a kid,
Right.
their psyche and their mental health. And yeah, that was hard. It was a
Mhm.
hard time to be a mental health clinician in an emergency department.
No kidding.
Yeah, big increase in anxiety, and also more exposure to social media and being online because they were isolated.
Right.
And I had learned through 821 that the rates of trafficking was dramatically escalating because they knew kids were going to be online. So
Yep.
they were targeting kids
Yeah.
through social media.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of awful things that came from that.
Yeah. It was COVID-19. I remember one of my nieces, when it was like we didn't have to wear masks anymore, refused to take it off because she had in her brain, her little brain, I'll die if I don't wear my mask. And I'm like, no, you'll be fine. And my mother would take it down and you could see the fear in the little girl. And I'm like, Ma, let's leave her alone. Let her and her mother deal with that. Because that's something you need to be walked through, talked through, and shown like it's going to be okay. I know. So significant jump in your work from the 2019 until now. Absolutely, I'm sure. And I can see my friend Gina's on, so I just want to give her a big shout out because she's an amazing human being going through some of her own issues right now. And I want you to know, G, you're very well loved. And thank you for being here with us tonight. So anything else with mental health, not just with moms, but anything else that we should be letting the world know?
There's always help. There's always support. I think that fear and silence are the one things that stop people, but you're never going to be judged or in trouble for reaching out and telling us what's going on.
And what would the first step be for someone maybe dialing, you said 988, that
988.
crisis,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
right? If they didn't want to dial 988, what else could they do?
Go to a local emergency room.
And just say, I don't feel right in the head.
Mm-hmm.
It's
You can
okay.
even text 988
Yeah,
too
you
if
can
calling
text,
is scary.
yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Do they text back or do
They
they
do.
call?
They
No,
text.
so you can
They do.
You can
Yeah.
call, text, and chat. So
Okay.
like instant message.
So when you're texting with 988, is an officer already being dispatched to your location?
No.
No, and
Nope.
I think that's the fear is if I call or text that police are going to show up, and that's not the case. A lot
Okay.
of times it's just someone like us that's giving emotional support.
Yep.
You don't have to be in imminent danger or in this awful crisis to reach out. You can just be having a bad day
Right.
and call and talk to someone.
Right.
Police departments don't monitor 988. It's mental health clinicians and like certified peer support specialists that are working those lines.
And
24/7.
988, is that national or
It is
that,
national,
It is
yeah.
national.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. So, and that was the goal of 988, was to try to separate 911 and the
Yep.
police and, for like EMS from mental health
Yep.
emergencies, because it should be a mental
Yep.
health clinician responding to those situations
Oh, yeah.
who is properly trained.
The Methuen Police Department, which is where I work, they I think we just celebrated a year having our PATH program in there, and they can show like how many calls were
Yeah.
diverted because of our amazing clinicians that were able to respond to it and do an intervention there. And sometimes the person doesn't have to be Section 12. Sometimes that
Right.
person just needs a medical medicine regulation or a phone call into their doctor and stuff like that. So instead of making this go south even more by, oh, this person's suicidal but doesn't have a plan, just not sure what they want to do, they don't require that Section 12. They just require a clinician to be there asking the appropriate questions to make that determination of what step is this going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is great stuff for mental health awareness. And I know I'm getting close to the end, and I didn't talk about all of the different events coming up. I typically do this in the morning before the show starts. So if you haven't bought your ticket for the MVP ASAP 10th anniversary, there's still time. We have until the 23rd of May to get in your tickets and your head counts. We have some amazing prizes, raffles, and things that we will be bidding on. I think maybe 3 or 4 auction items, but they're so cool too. One is box seats behind, if you're a Red Sox fan, behind the dugout. So you get those 2 seats for an amazing game. We have another Boston Red Sox tickets for another location, which is pretty awesome. We also have some amazing, if you are a sports fan, we have some sports fan memorabilia being auctioned off. So our event is to honor the 10th year of MVP ASAP, and it's their 10th year of their nonprofit license year, because I think they've been going on for 13, 14 years, but we did it based on when they received their nonprofit ID number. It's at Lindsay's in Drakeit. We have an amazing meal, and we have some great speakers. We have the Dr. Jennifer Burns and Al Ruthazer. They were 2 of the co-founders of MVP ASAP, and they're going to come share a little bit about how this MVP ASAP got started and looking at where we're at today. And then the final speaker will be Mass State Auditor Diana DeZoglio, who was a huge push to get MVP ASAP started. So you can find this on Eventbrite for our tickets. There's still time for sponsorship, I think, until the end of next week as well. We have some amazing sponsors. We have Aftermath, we have Pillars, we have Dr. Burns. Sorry, I'm getting a tickle. Dr. Burns is LLC. We have Enterprise Bank. So we're really blessed to be having this, and we hope to see you there. If it's like a piece of pollen when in my throat. If you can make it, great. If you want to send in a donation, great. I appreciate it. I also want to remind everyone that we have those Circle of Hope every Monday evening at the Methuen Police Department. Let me backtrack that. We have it every other Monday for the spring and summer, and then it will go back to its regular schedule in the fall. So we are meeting on May 19th, which is this coming May. However, if there's families out there that need resources on the weeks that we don't meet, you can always reach out to me at the police department or also to Fran Leahy, who would love to hear from you. She is 978-697-7413. There's a brand new Women's Connection support group, and this isn't for anyone that's, you don't have to be an addict or an alcoholic to attend. This is just a basic woman support group where women can come together to connect. They have weekly topics such as gratitude, positive affirmations, speaker meetings, and random topics. And this is every Tuesday evening from 5 to 6 at 82 Elm Street in Salisbury, Mass. And don't worry if you're not writing all this down, because it will be posted on it already is posted on MVP ASAP and also my own personal Facebook page so that you can have access to this. Also, there's a stimulant use disorder program, a support group that meets every Wednesday, 10 to 12, and that's at 100 Water Street in Lawrence, Mass. So that's anyone addicted to Adderall, cocaine, any type of stimulant. And also I'll give a shout out to a meeting that I started during COVID-19, which is called the Coconuts. And guess what we're there for? And that meets on Tuesday nights in Andover, and you can reach out to me for that. We also have Celebrate Recovery at Gar Park, and it's food, fellowship, and faith for everyone who has a hurt, habit, or a hang-up. And what does that look like? It can look like you have issues with abandonment, betrayal, codependency, depression, eating disorders, finances, grief, low self-esteem, people-pleasing, pornography. So this meets every Tuesday starting May 27th through September 6th, weather permitting. So if it's pouring, they're not going to be outside worshiping and hosting a meeting. And yeah, Joel, you love me. Princess. And that's 10 Welcome Street in Haverhill, Mass. Also, May 31st, we have one of the biggest camp things ever, and it is called, I'm drawing a blank on it, but it's the biggest 12-step camping trip ever. And I'm going to have to get back to you because the cell's not connecting to make that thought go through. And I can see it, but I can't think of it. So we'll go back. But there was also, if you don't go camping, you can also go to a big book barbecue and bonfire. And that's going to be held May 31st from 4 to 9 at the Riverside Church at Hampton Falls Road in Exeter. Suggested contribution is $20. They're going to have some amazing speakers. So if you're looking for some fun on May 31st, please join the Nikipa and Mekipa, which is New England. Yeah, sure. We'll get back to that too. And then we also have Save the Date for the someone from Florida is calling for the 9th annual Recovery Fest. And this is Sunday, September 14th, 9 to 5. There will be food, crafts, music, face painting, and fun for everyone. And this will be held at the Waltham Common, 610 Main Street. Hi, Cameron.
Hi. Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, we can see you. Woohoo! Also, if you are a runner, meaning not like a runner, but like someone who likes to jog, we have Tuesday evenings. The Phoenix does, they have a running group, and they run on Tuesdays in Leominster, Mass. I know it's a little far, but our podcast reaches everywhere. So on Tuesday evenings at 5:30, there's a group that get together to run in Leominster. And also on Thursday evenings at 5 p.m. Oh, so one's 5:30 a.m., one's 5 p.m. And all of that can be found on thephoenix.org. And then the last thing we have is Dream Big Golf Classic in memory of Daniel M. Trafficante III. His sister Allison misses him tremendously, and she is putting together a golf tournament that will be held at the Merrimack Valley Golf Club golf course on Monday, June 23rd. And if anyone needs information on that, you can contact Allison Trafficanti, and her information will be listed on our Facebook page as well, along with a phone number. And they have some great prizes and raffles as well that they will be giving away. So that's all, everything I have for upcoming events. If there's something I forgot, feel free to reach out to me, and I will definitely get it on MVP ASAP's page. I just want to take this opportunity to thank both you ladies for coming out and talking about a subject that was both personal to yourself and that could also help other women out there. So anyone, if you're pregnant or planning to becoming pregnant or had a baby and you're struggling, like, reach out to these girls. Actually, how would one get in touch with the two of you?
So our business name is AsterRoot Wellness. We have a website, AsterRootWellness.com.
Can you type that into our thing?
I think he already did.
Oh,
it.
did he
did
do
it real
Aster?
quick.
Yes.
You're
he did.
just ahead of the game tonight. I think I love you. But go ahead, continue.
So you can find information about us on our website.
Okay, and can you spell it? Because
So Aster, ASTER,
Yep.
and then Root, ROOT,
Yep.
wellness.com.
awesome.
So you can book through the website.
Mhm.
We also have an Instagram page where we try to share resources
Yep.
or, other reels that we find would be helpful for clients.
Yep.
So feel free to follow us.
We are both actively accepting patients. I am licensed in Maine and New Hampshire, so I can accept patients in Maine and New Hampshire. Ashley is licensed in New Hampshire, but we're also both working on Massachusetts.
Amen.
And you're working on Maine. So we both should be able to see patients in all 3 states. Relatively
Thank you.
soon.
Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here with us this evening. It was really enlightening and also offering hope to those. Again, if you're out there, you're a mom or even a dad, because you guys struggle too with
Mhm.
postpartum, feel free to reach out. As always, I want to thank Lou Blassie for being the best producer ever. Thank you to all our sponsors who make this happen. Thank you to those who tuned in for this evening. And I hope to see you at our 10th anniversary. Until then, if no one told you they loved you today, I love you. Good night and God bless.